friends, the topic which I am going to discuss through this video is society and the culture. So, if I talk about sociology, it is that basic thing which includes the human behavior, which is largely shaped by the groups to which people belong and by the social interaction that take place within those groups. The main focus of sociology is the group, not any particular individual. The sociologist is mainly interested in the interaction between the people, the way in which people act towards and respond and influence each other. So, sociology is characterized by its approach to phenomena, the approach to science, and by its subject matter, which means any human interaction. It is being rightly defined as scientific study of human interaction. So, sociology is about society. It constitutes institutions, their interrelationship, and the actors. Sociologists study the pattern of social interaction. So, coming on to the meaning of society, the term society is the most fundamental to sociology. It is derived from the Latin word socius, which means companionship or friendship. Companionship means sociability. According to George Simmel, it is this element of sociability which defines the true essence of society. It indicates that man always lives in the company of other people. Man is a social animal, said Aristotle centuries ago. Man needs society for his living being, for working and enjoying his life. So, society has become an essential condition for human life to continue. We can define society as a group of people who share a common culture, occupy a particular territorial area, and feel themselves to constitute a unified and distinct entity. It is the mutual interactions and interrelations of individuals and groups. The characteristics of society. McLever believes that society means liveliness. Hence, one of the characteristics is likeliness. Though the meaning of likeliness has changed from traditional to modern society. Whereas, when we talk about the traditional societies, which means family, kinship, or any blood relationship, define the attribute of likeliness. Whereas, in the modern societies, social likeliness has broadened its attribute to the principle to one world. Though likeliness is the basic feature of society, the feature of difference cannot be ignored. Difference here means diversity of or reciprocity in relations. It is a society, all are alike. Then there will be very less interaction and society would not be diverse. The difference or diversity complement opposite or reciprocal relationship. There are various differences of diversity on the basis of sex, interest, nature, etc. Such difference brings diversity to society and hence gives different aspect to society. In a society, the second characteristic, one unit depends upon another. Hence, all are interdependent. That is, one institution of society cannot fulfill all the requirements of the society. It is the interdependence that fulfills the need of society and its goal. In modern society, not only countries but also several countries are interdependent on another. For a society to be in harmony and in a proper functioning corporation is required. No society can exist in isolation. Harmonious relations are must for smooth functioning of the society. So society is a very complex system of social relationship. Various institutions of society interact with each other to maintain a cordial relations amongst themselves. Next is Culture. Culture is a word all of us use in our day-to-day parlance in its daily usage. The term culture refers to polished behavior, personal refinements as classical music, the fine arts, and word of philosophy, etc. But philanthropists define and use the term in quite a different way. The term culture is used in a much broader sense by philanthropists as culture includes much more than just the finer things in life. There is no differentiation between cultured people and uncultured people, since all people have culture from the anthropological point of view. It is not possible for human being to live without the minimal material objects which are tangible. Without a network of social relations among people, human life is impossible. Human existence is impracticable without ideas, rules, symbols, and patterns of thinking, which are intangible. Symbols, ideas, rules, ideals, patterns of thinking, network of social relation, and material objects together comprise the mental, rational, and material, technological processes and products. They are integrated into a whole, the design of living. This design of living is called culture. It is the total way of life of the human being. Culture serves as a potential guide for human living. As a guide, it aids the human being to know what is good and bad, desirable, important, unimportant, rational, and irrational. So, characteristics of culture. Culture is a historically created design for living. Generation after generation, new things are added to it. And this is accountable for the development and change in culture. The culture we have at present combines what has been first created by our ancestors with what has been added to it by subsequent generations. To be brief, culture is dynamic. That is, as times goes on, new items are added to those already existing things. Culture is unique to the human species. No species has ability like human being in its complexity. That is to learn to communicate and to store, process and use information to the same extent. Culture has moral force which serves as a guide for human action, how to behave in a society. Neither monkeys nor apes have moral forces in their life. Morality is a part of culture. Therefore, human culture is called like as a unique to the human species. Culture is a product of social learning rather than biological heredity, which means culture is non-genetic. It cannot be inherited by offspring from parents, but it can be transmitted socially from parents to children. Like animal, human cannot inherit behavior. Animal behavior is inborn. Animals inherit behavior or at most protoculture, but humans acquire culture. All people have culture, though not similar. Different group of humans or societies have different culture. This shows cultural diversity. That means culture has unity as well as diversity. All humans have culture, but all culture are not alike. In this context, it is very necessary to draw a distinction between a culture and culture. The term culture signifies the way of life of a human society as a whole, and the term a culture signifies the way of life or specific part of human society, which is technically called a society. Milonovich defines culture as an instrumental reality and apparatus for the satisfaction of the biological and derived need. It is the integral whole consisting of implements in consumer goods of constitutional characters for the various social groupings of human ideas and culture, beliefs and customs. Culture in general as a descriptive concept means the accumulated treasury of human creations, books, paintings, buildings, and the like, the knowledge of ways of adjusting to our surroundings, both human and physical, language, customs, and systems of etiquette, ethics, religion, and morals that have been built up through the ages. Culture refers to that part of the total setting which include the material object of human manufacture, techniques, social orientation, point of view, and sanctioned ends that are immediate conditioning factors underlying behavior. Or in simple terms, it can be said that culture is the man-made part of the environment. Culture is a way of life and morality. It is a part of culture. Anthropologists say that culture is learned as each person must learn how to be a member of that culture. Shared as it offers all people ideas and about behavior. Symbolic as it is based on the manipulation of symbols. Systematic and integrated as a part of culture work together in an integrated whole. Elements of culture, values, norms, sanctions, culture traits. Culture is socially learned, culture is symbolic, culture is integrated, it is adaptive and maladaptive, and it is all encompassing. All these are the elements of culture. It is inculcated, it is gratifying. When we talk about values, what it is called, or we can what is considered as good, proper, and desirable, or bad, improper, or undesirable in a culture can be called as values. It influences people's behavior and serve as a benchmark for evaluating the action of others. There is often a direct relationship between the values, norms, and sanctions of a culture. When we talk about norms, norms here refers to a standard pattern of behavior that is accepted by society. Norms may differ from society to society. Generally, there are two types of norms, formal norms and informal norms. Norms that are written down and violation of which can lead to punishment is referred to as formal norms. By contrast, informal norms are generally understood and followed by a society, though not recorded in a black and white manner. Sanctions consist of both reward and penalties. It includes rewards for conducting the norms of the society as prescribed or penalties for defying the concerned social norms. Adherence to a norm can lead to positive sanctions, such as a medal, a word of gratitude, or a pat on the back. Negative sanctions include fines, threats, imprisonments, and even unpleasant states of for contempt. The most cherished ways or values of a culture will be most heavily sanctioned, whereas matters regarded as less cultural or critical will carry light and informal sanctions. Cultural traits are the smallest, simplest unit of a particular culture. They are building blocks of culture. Each trait can be material or non-material, and it is analogous to the unit of human body, the cell. Each cultural trait has a form, use, function, and meaning. As several cells form a tissue, several traits form a complex culture. Culture is socially learned thing. Culture is a naturally outgrowth of the social interaction that constitute human groups, whether in societies or in any organization. Whenever and wherever people come together or over a time culture develops. Culture is learned from our parents, surroundings, from our friends and other through enculturation, and the learned behavior is communicated in the group through forms of socialization such as observation, instruction, reward, punishment, and experiences. The learning takes place in individual situation of experiences, social institution of imitating others, and cultural situations of symbolic communication. Culture is socially learned. Culture is natural outgrowth of the social interaction that constitute human groups, whether in societies or organization. Whenever and wherever people come together over time and culture develops. Culture is learned from our parents. This is what I have just told you now. Culture is gratifying culture. Culture always and necessarily satisfies the basics biological and social needs of human being. Culture elements continue so long as they satisfy the needs of humans. If they fail to fulfill the wants of humans, they may be changed or replaced by new ones to secure the satisfaction of human wants. Gratification of needs reinforces, strengthens, and perpetuates cultural elements. So, culture shock all of us to some extent or some other extent. Take for granted the cultural practices of our society. As a result, it can be surprising and disturbing to realize that other cultures do not follow the same way of life. Culture shock can be set off either by the physical items of an unfamiliar culture or by the ways that people act. Yet we can experience culture shock even in our own society. Culture shock is the psychological and social maladjustment at micro and also macro level that is experienced for the first time when people encounter new cultural elements such as new things, new ideas, new concepts, seemingly strange beliefs and practices. No person is protected from culture shock. However, individuals vary in their capacity to adapt and overcome the influences of culture shock. Overtness and covertness. Overtness and covertness here refers to the qualities of culture as detected by an observer. The observer may be an anthropologist or a member of the society who is unfamiliar with certain parts of the culture. So, overt means easily detectable qualities of a culture. These include artifices, actions, utterance, which can be perceived directly. Artifices includes houses, clothes, books, tools, etc. Action imply postures in various situations, curing practices, sports, externally manifested signs of respect, etc. Utterance include here speech, songs, proverbs, etc. An observer can easily detect these qualities because one has plenty of opportunities to see them, experience them, and also record them. On the other hand, covert here implies those qualities of culture which are not easily detected by an outsider. Sentiments, beliefs, fears, values are some of the cultural items which cannot be easily detectable. That is, they are covert. They are not amenable to direct observation, and overall, people cannot always explain what they feel. It is generally difficult to express these abstract ideas. Culture is the sum total of learned, shared, and socially transmitted behavior, which includes ideas, values, customs of groups of people. A fairly large number of people living in the same territory constitute a society. Members of a society share a common language, which facilitates day to day exchange with others and participate in a common culture. Nadal, in his work, says it is necessary to make a distinction between culture from its companion term, society. According to him, culture is the way of life of the people, while a society is an organized, interacting aggregate of individuals who follow a given way of life. In simple terms, a society is composed of people. The way they behave is their culture. Since the time of bows and culture became a tool for understanding and describing the exotic society, the anthropological study on cultural relativism allows a comparison of culture without assuming evolutionary hierarchies. It means that every culture has in its own rights to be different and does not stand for the purpose of other culture. In other words, all cultures express validity in their perspective of the world. Thus, it could be inappropriate to judge cannibalism activity among society, even if we use universal notions on violence. What we can do is try to understand the reason and rationalize such activity. Every notion of culture was popularized among anthropologists in order to understand homogeneous societies. In the modern world, the relationship between culture and society is a very complex topic. Culture is produced and reproduced within the society, and society acts in certain ways in a culture. But how does culture work in this complex society? Earlier, anthropologists used culture as the set of practical and contingent significations, while postmodernists use it to mark the domain of signifying practices. According to Petriara 2004, society can be seen as a collection of individual members pursuing their interests in the context of formal rules administered by specialists and implemented by the state. It was also a constant state of self constitution, whose members are engaged in the individual life projects marked by persuasive and value rationality. Society consists of individuals mostly unknown to one another, but nevertheless linked through abstract categories such as class, nation, or even gender. In this case, society assumed as the real place or arena, an institution in which individuals play their roles in order to achieve their different objectives. When we see the relation between society and culture are two elements that are complementing each other. Society expresses itself through culture. We can associate the group of people or society from culture they practice, such as Asian society is characterized by Asian culture, or Javanese society with its Javanese culture. Furthermore, culture is manifested in the socio-economic structures as frames for the organization of social relationship. It is embedded both in the material setting and the social institutions of society. Material experiences are organized and group relations are structured through culture. But culture has also the medium through which the social world is experienced, interpreted, and understood. In this sense, culture is something more basic than ideological superstructure. Culture is produced in an given society within the framework set by the social economic structure. The cultural process perpetually occurs among the different groups and classes in the society and also affect the social structure. And lastly, culture is manifested in the social economic structures as frames for the organization of social relationship. It is embedded both in the material settings and the social institutions of the society. So, the culture process perpetually occurs among different groups and classes in a society. That is all I wanted to share through this video. I will continue about this topic in my next lecture. Thank you so much.